Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
What is your vision of the future? Hey everybody, Joe Simons, like diamonds, back again with Salt Strong Unchurched. This is going to be a powerful one. We just had Chris McAllister. He's been a guest here on the podcast 2 times in the past couple of years, but we just had him speak to the whole team. And I thought it went great. I knew it went great afterwards when I had multiple people on the team, like immediately after, either call me personally or text me and saying like, that was the best thing that any employer has ever done for us. Like, that was amazing. Let's do more of this. And so I knew he nailed it when I have teammates messaging me saying, "Hey, let's do more of that." Because normally, right, if you've ever been part of a company or work for a company, big or small, and they have a speaker come in or they want you to sit through some presentation, you're kind of rolling your eyes. I know I was back in the day, and there was very few that would impact me like Chris did, and this was one where the whole team was just sitting there. They were literally taking notes. I watched them. It was so cool, really, really impactful. So I'm going to share what Chris shared with us, and it's all about this vision of the future. There's 3 steps. There's 3 ways that you kind of get there. And Chris is so good because he's a great communicator. 2, he tells great stories. And I'm going to share one of the stories that he shared to kind of make all of this real. And but he started off just saying, "Hey, what is your vision of the future?" Right? And kind of got quiet. And I don't have to say this to you guys who have been some very active listeners of Unchurched. I talk about having a purpose, a mission, some sort of vision out into the future. Write it down, the power of that. And he went on to say, most people don't have that, and it's okay to have a gap, right, between where you are and where your vision is. Right, that's good. That's kind of a goal. That's what keeps you driving there. But if you don't have anything, like how do you know where you're going? He's like, that's how most people end up sad, depressed, just living only in the day and in the moment, without ever looking ahead to say, hey, where the heck are we going? That's why most great companies have a vision, a forward-facing, forward-thinking vision. But question number 2, this is really big after he kind of made us think about that for a little while. So what is your vision for the future? Your future, not your company's future. And this had nothing to do with Salt Strong. This is about them. Like, maybe it's with Salt Strong, maybe it's not. What is your vision? What do you see yourself doing? What are the goals? And number 2, this is the powerful one. Are you willing to pay the price for it? Ooh, right? Because some of us could have these massive goals, right? And sadly, a lot of people have these massive goals, but aren't willing to pay the price for it, right? Just kind of want it to happen, or praying that, hey, maybe I'll just get some breaks and it'll happen. Like most things in life, you got to kind of take some action. As I said in the old Fishing for Happiness book, the last piece of it ended on action. All these great ideas and writing down a purpose and a vision are kind of worthless without it. But here's where it really got interesting with these 3 questions. So he says, well, regardless, let's go into the 3 questions. So number 1, at any given time, but especially when you're stressed, or if you're just in a tough spot, feeling bad, feeling negative, beating yourself up, is what story are you telling in your mind? Right? What is the story that your mind is telling you when you're stressed? And I'm going to give you an example here of what I mean in a second. So when you're in a tough situation, or just things aren't going well, what story is your mind telling you? Like, I'm not talking about what are you telling people, or maybe it could be one and the same, but what is your mind telling you? Like, man, I really stink, or I'm never gonna succeed at this. What story is your mind telling you? And then number 2, what story could your mind or your brain be telling you that would be the opposite if you're going down a negative path? And then what story are you telling others through your actions? That's it. And let me give you an example of this. So there's a guy that he knows there in Columbus, Ohio, and I'm going to go and this is a true story. And so in his 20s, this guy would have been someone you probably looked at and said, man, he's never going to go anywhere in life. He was working at a restaurant there in Columbus, in his 20s, when a lot of his friends had, I'm going to put in air quotes, real jobs, not working in the back of a restaurant. They were getting their first entry level jobs and working at businesses and things like that. And he's in his mid to late 20s, working in the back of a restaurant at minimum wage. And the story that he was telling himself, so this is question number one, what's the story that your mind's telling you when you're in a bind? So he was telling himself, and this is his quotes, man, I am the worst employee here in this entire restaurant, and I'm probably going to get fired. So every day he would wake up, and that was a story in his mind that he was telling himself is, man, I am the worst employee in this entire place. And yeah, I'm probably going to get fired any day. It's just I'm not showing up. He's not excited. And so obviously that just oozes out of him in a negative way, right? If that's the story that you're telling yourself when you wake up, man, I'm just the worst. I'm never going to succeed. Oh gosh, I'm the worst employee here. I'm the worst, player on the baseball team or whatever it is. Then of course you're probably going to stay there if that's the story you're telling yourself. And so number two, what story could your brain be telling you? And he's like, this is when it flipped for me. And it took a while, but he said he woke up one day and he says, I'm going to stop telling myself this story that I'm the worst employee here. And he says, you know what? I'm just going to change it to I'm going to be the best employee at this entire restaurant. So he's not trying to change the world, but that's his new vision. He's got a brand new vision, right? You can see how simple this can be, right? So he went from saying I'm in the dumps, I'm worthless, just say, you know what? I'm gonna promise myself that I'm gonna do everything in my power to be the best employee at this restaurant. So he started telling himself that multiple times a day. I'm going to be the best employee at this entire restaurant. And he did. It took some time, but he did. He actually became, the employee or whatever of the month. I mean, so he went from being literally the worst and telling himself he's the worst to telling himself the best. And it actually happened. I mean, that's the power of a written down goal, something you're telling yourself every day. Do you remember what number 3 is? What story are you telling others through your actions? So he says, all right, then he changed it to say, all right, I'm going to take some massive action here and I'm going to build the best restaurant in all of Columbus, Ohio. Whoa, right? That's a big vision. Now that's a big change. So he actually was doing the actions to become the best employee. And he says, all right, I'm going to flip this again and have a whole new vision. And I'm going to build the best restaurant in Columbus, Ohio. And guess what happened? He literally built the best top restaurant in Columbus, Ohio. Still there to this day. Guy's still there. Completely true story. And as Chris was telling this story and talking about how these three things, I couldn't help but think about a friend I have who I've tried to help out so many times. And I might even send this to him. It's almost like I'm to the point I feel bad even trying to coach because I've tried to coach so much. And I don't know if you know what I'm talking about there, where you've got someone where you've tried to help so much and now it's almost like an insult to them because things have gone so bad. But as I was hearing Chris say this, I'm not going to mention this person's name, obviously, but the story that they're telling themselves is just kind of what this guy in the restaurant business was. He literally always says, man, I'm just the worst person here. It takes me so long to learn. I'm probably going to get fired. And I'm not kidding you. In the past, I'm going to say 10 years, he's probably had 22 jobs, maybe more. It's like 6 months kind of max is about how long he can hold a job. And guess what? He's literally just setting himself up for failure because he says that. He wakes up and says that. No matter how much I've tried to coach him, no matter how many other people are like, hey, man, you might just try to change your attitude and say, I'm as little as I'm going to be the best employee here. And instead he goes in with that negative mindset and attitude. What is your mind telling you? And he's just, man, I'm probably going to get fired. No one's going to end up liking me here. I mean, when you go in with that, you are absolutely 100% going to attract that. And if you're a young listener, I wish someone had shared some of this stuff with me when I was younger, because many times I had a bad attitude about stuff, and it was crazy how often it came true when I went in telling myself that I was probably going to fail or be the worst or whatever the fear was, right? Because this is usually some fear or stress that is causing this. And I'm willing to bet if my buddy just went in and says, you know what, this time's going to be different. I'm going to be the absolute best employer. I'm going to be the fastest person to ever get a raise. And not once has he told himself that, because instead he beats himself up over and over again. So that's what he should, that's number 2, right? That's the story he should be telling himself. And then the actions, well, guess what? I mean, he somehow finds a way to lose every single job, either to screw up or to something happen to him, or, many times it's because he's telling himself he's not going to get along with anyone, which ends up being true, even as a really likable person. I mean, he's a super likable person, really loving, and for some reason ends up, ticking someone off about something. It's almost unexplainable how things can come into your life when you kind of will them there by talking about them all the time. I don't know. It's just absolutely amazing. And then when I heard the story of, Chris, of this guy who was, in his mid to upper 20s, and once again, nothing against you if you're working in a restaurant or anything in your mid 20s, but he was looking at himself as, oh man, I'm a loser compared to all my friends, et cetera. And I remember feeling that. It took me a while to get my first job out of college, and I was in my mid 20s or young 20s, working, trying to work any job I possibly could, substitute teacher, et cetera. So I get that feeling where I was feeling this. So I could certainly sympathize with this. But from all of a sudden telling yourself, man, I'm the worst person here, I'm probably going to get fired, I'm the worst employee in this whole place, to all of a sudden changing it to, you know what, I'm going to be the best employee in this entire place. And then taking action on that. That's it. Because I think sometimes, when I even talk about, painting this vision or having this big mission in life, it's intimidating, right? And it can be really tough. And for me, it was a little bit easier for whatever reason. But for most people, it's really, really tough to be able to paint a vision and to have some clarity on it. It's almost like looking through like broken binoculars, right? For most people. And it was like that for me for many, many years. And all of a sudden it was just like my binoculars got clear, and I could see the vision. I could see what I'm supposed to be doing in life. But for most of it's really tough. And so to me, this is a really, really easy way to not have to look through the binoculars. Just look at your life right now. What are you telling yourself, right? Where do you want to go? What is the vision? Even if it's just 6 months or a year out, right? To go from being the worst employee or whatever, worst mom, dad, husband, whatever, boyfriend, girlfriend, to being the best. That's not something that takes 10 years. It's not a 10-year vision. It shouldn't be, at least, right? That's something you could do in a really short amount of time. And so I love this because it kind of shortens the curve and can just make this be a whole lot easier to digest and to do. And then that final piece, I love it, is, what story are you telling others through your actions, right? It's one thing is, what are you telling yourself? And what is your mind saying? But all right, if your actions are telling completely different stories, like if let's just go with that restaurant example. So if you were used to be telling yourself you're the worst employee, and now you're saying you're gonna be the best, but you're still acting like you did in the past, or showing up to work drunk or whatever, you're not, the story you're telling others, your actions, is not congruent with your goal, and meaning it's almost destined 100% to fail. And so all of those things have to line up, and that's where the action part really takes place. And I think so many people, including me, we paint this vision of, all right, here's the story that I should be telling myself, and here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be the best at this, or I'm going to do this, or here's what I'm going to hit, or I'm going to hit this income level, or whatever it is. And then we don't change anything about our actions, and we just hope and pray, or maybe we even do, but it's a really, really short amount of time. And then we're just back to where we were, and we just hope and pray it's going to fix itself. The actions are really, really powerful, But most people think it's going to be this one big swing. I'm going to take this one big swing and it's going to be a home run and everything is going to change in one day. And that rarely, if ever, happens. It's normally a bunch of, guess what wins baseball games? A bunch of little singles, maybe even a couple walks that aren't exciting, but you get on base. And that's usually what wins the games. It's not that home run or the grand slam. It's normally just consistent base hits over time, getting people on the base. And it's the same. I mean, if I look at any massive, massive goal that I've hit, it was never one thing. It was never two things. It was always a bunch of little small things added up together, a bunch of little small actions, right? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. It was a bunch of really, really small things, small actions. Just like this guy saying, I'm going to go from being the worst employee to the best. He didn't just show up and change that in a day by dressing nicer. No, it was a bunch of small things. Oh, cool. I'm going to memorize the menu. That's going to take me a week. I'm going to show up 5 minutes early. It's not something you just do once and all of a sudden you're the best. You got to do it every single day. It's a bunch of these small little actions that just start compounding. And all of a sudden you wake up 6 months from now, like, holy smokes, man, this guy's a rock star. He's the best that we've ever seen. We should give him a raise. Isn't that cool? But it wasn't just one thing, dressing nicer or you putting your hair slicked back for a day or showing up early for a week. It was a bunch of really, really small things. So don't forget that. Hope this was helpful. I know I don't communicate it as well as my boy Chris McAllister does, but I thought this was just too good. Such a great way of painting your vision for the future. And as it talks about in the Bible, we already had a podcast not that long ago about this, ironically. If there's no vision, the people perish. I mean, it's so critical to have a vision, and it inspired me to, really work and tweak on our longer term vision at Salt Strong for our employees and team members and obviously for our customers as well. So they know that, well, hey, here's where Salt Strong is going. We've already talked about the theme park, but I haven't really painted the picture after that. I've got a much clearer view. For a while there, it felt like I was looking through some broken binoculars past the theme park thing. But now I've got some really, really cool, exciting ideas I'll be sharing here sooner than later. So love you guys. Hope you have a great week. And if you have any thoughts, questions, hit me up, joe@saltstrong.com.
'Cause fishing, it's in my soul.